Hey, everybody. Let's see, what day is it? The
I don't know.
perpetual question, right? Thursday. It's Thursday, so we are really close to the weekend. And I'm really excited to have a special guest with me today. Marie Greene is joining us to talk about her new book, which I hope you've heard about by now. We've been posting lots and lots. Yes, text us if you send us a little message to let us know you're here. We're super excited to talk about all the little things. So, good morning, good morning, good morning. So this is Marie Greene. I'm sure you already know who she is, but just in case you don't, she is a fantastic pattern designer who writes all kinds of beautiful. She specializes in sweater patterns, in fact, top-down seamless sweater patterns. And her most recent endeavor is to delve into the world of tiny knitting. So we are excited to see what she has. The thing that I love about Marie is that her patterns are so timeless and classic, and they, they're not going to be out of style next year. So if you invest your time knitting a sweater from Marie's patterns, you're probably going to want to wear it for a while. In fact, I'm wearing my Beekeeper cardigan. This was year 2, 4-day knit along. Is that
I
right,
think it
Marie?
was year 2. Yeah.
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 So anyway, the excitement is all about the Bitty Beekeeper for me today. I have some little samples here in Marie's newest book called Knit a Little. Show us that book again, Marie. Knit a
Knit
Little.
a little.
She has 24 patterns in the Knit a Little book. There are 12 kids sweaters and 12 hats for the whole family. And they're all inspired by her timeless classic designs. They're really classy. Not, I was gonna use the word cheesy, but I don't think they're not.
Thank
cheesy.
you for saying they're not cheesy. I appreciate that.
Sometimes baby patterns. I don't know. I guess you're like me. I wanted to dress my kids in things that I would want to wear a lot. And so I think that's what I love so much about these patterns is that they echo your patterns, which I also want to wear a lot. I think I've knit probably 6 of your sweaters. I definitely have not knit even close to all of them. You have how many sweater patterns do you have now?
My total pattern library is pretty close to 200 designs. I would say most of them are sweaters.
Yeah.
Like probably 90%, 85% are sweaters.
You are the master of the sweater. Though hats and shawls and other accessories. Of course, you have 2 other books. So this is book number 3 for you. Pretty exciting.
It is. I'm so excited. And it seemed, I actually started on a different third book before pandemic life. And I just wasn't, I don't know, it just wasn't the right moment. I wasn't feeling it. And then people kept asking for little versions. I think it kind of started with soundtrack that people were like, oh my gosh, a little version. I was like, I know, we could call it soundbite. It would be adorable. And then I just kept hearing whispers of, wouldn't it be nice if this was, in a size for kids? And I thought, before I start just writing all these individual kids patterns, maybe I should think about this being, my next book. And then once that idea was planted, I was really excited. And it was so much fun going through my collection of designs and then drawing inspiration to create mini versions. Also, little sweaters knit so fast. I was like, why haven't I been doing all these little sweaters every day forever? They're so easy and fast to knit.
I mean, I knit this in, let's see. It took me, I could have done it in 2 days. I will tell you, my best friend Holly knit me this little bitty Beekeeper. She knit it in 1 day, but she's super fast. I'm not super fast. Yeah. And the next day she knit me the baby beanie to go with it so that I would have the matching set. I started this at the same time, and it took me a little longer.
You might be busy dyeing some yarn, though, I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's been a little busy in the dye studio. I was wondering, a lot of people start. Hi, everybody. I love thanks for saying hi. It's so nice to see so many people here that I recognize. Nice to see your familiar faces. I was kind of wondering. I know you started knitting when you were pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first sort of thing you ever remember knitting? Was it?
Barbies. It was
I was
Barbie twin sets.
back to
I
Marie's.
am. I'm coming full circle for sure. Yeah, I started about age 10 or 11, and I didn't. I was kind of had a weird upbringing, and I didn't really have very many toys, and so. But my grandma had gotten me a Barbie, and she's the one that taught me to knit. So I was just making little Barbie twin sets. She basically just gave me some tiny double points and like bags of yarn scraps of whatever. And I mean, you don't need very much yarn to knit a tiny little thing. And gave me like one little written out, note of a pattern from her own, sort of recipe of here's how she knits them. And from there, that's just, I knit those for years, and those and baby booties, even though I didn't know any babies, but I knit a lot of baby booties.
So if you don't have any kids at home or grandkids like me, you can still knit tiny things because it's really fun.
It is fun. It is fun.
So you kind of you were already thinking outside the box from a pattern, like from the very beginning. Were you ever a pattern follower, or have you always been an innovator?
I wasn't, because I didn't really have access to patterns that I was interested in. I had been given patterns from the 40s and some magazines from the 60s and 70s, couple from the 80s, and those especially no.
Talk about cheesy.
Major cheese, a lot of like intarsia,
Yeah,
something. Not that intarsia is bad, but just the styles were not what I was looking for at the time. And so I just didn't ever see something that was exactly what I wanted to make. So I always, I don't know. I think the way that I learned was not by being married to a pattern anyway. Like my grandma just sort of was like, here's the recipe of how this works. And then I just, figured it out. So I would go through those books from the 40s, and I would look for inspiration, and I would be like, oh, I like the idea of, a skirt or a capelet or whatever. I mean, nothing real trendy in there, but, and then I would just sort of like, oh, okay, how is that constructed? How does that work? And then just kind of figure out something similar. So I've never been a pattern follower. I've followed a couple of patterns in my life, but not very many.
it's just not your thing. You
It's
were
not my
always
thing.
meant to be a designer.
Yeah, I think so.
Rainey asked the question, do your little sweaters pretty much use the same construction and techniques as your adult sweaters, or are there significant differences? Curious if knitting these would give me more confidence to knit more of your adult sweaters.
That's a great question, Rainey. I would say for the most part, they're very similar, just on the small scale. I did take some of the complexity out of instructions. For example, with the Gansey, I did a little Gansey sweater in the book. And it's the tiny version of my January Gansey. Let me see if I can find it. I'm flipping through here. And so it looks very similar, but it doesn't have the really fancy underarm construction that I did, and the, kind of the fancy closure on the top of the shoulders that I did with the original. So it's a little pared back, definitely simpler, but it's still, I use a lot of the same kinds of neckline shaping techniques, the same kinds of increases. And like with the Bitty Beekeeper that I did in Heather's yarn, I used the same bee stitch that I had developed for the original Beekeeper. And I had always wanted to turn Beekeeper into a pullover and do more with that really fun stitch concept. But at the time, I didn't have time. And so now I'm kind of bringing that fun stitch back to life with this little version. And then of course, now I'm doing a grown-up pullover Beekeeper in Heather's yarn too.
Whoa,
The words,
I don't think you spilled that yet.
I haven't told anybody yet, but I'm letting out the news on your live today. Nobody knows. You know, if you're watching today or watching the replay, then you're finding out that I'm doing a little a revisit. I hope I didn't let it out too soon. People are going to start running for yarn and be like, oh my gosh, poor Heather's like,
have to wait because
you're going to have to wait.
Bitty things first.
Exactly. We got a lot of bitty things for sure.
We're going to knit all the little things and the hats, and there will be lots of DK yarn on the website. If you haven't signed up for my newsletter, you should do that so that you know when it's going to be there. 5 o'clock tomorrow is when I will have yarn available for all these patterns. I was hoping that I would have the book so I would know which other patterns would work for the DK yarn, but
I will get that. I'll give you something that gives you all that information, my project planner, so you have all of it so you can kind of put those kits together.
That would be great because I know, I totally want to knit a tiny soundtrack, and I think people probably would rather order yarn all at once, but also there's a baby foxtrot, which I know these names, they all have different sort of names, but they're all the little patterns you guys know and love.
Here's the little foxtrot version. That's so cute.
It's so cute. I love how it has kind of the faux little turtleneck. Is it?
It's not really a turtleneck. It's just a little crew kind of. Okay. You know, you can make it more of a turtleneck if you want, though.
Yeah. So I know that you. Oh, I forgot the question I was going to ask you next. That's okay. I think.
You were gonna. I know you were gonna ask me about if I had a favorite in the book. Is that what you were?
Was
okay.
Remember, I was going to ask you if you have three boys or four? Three boys. Three boys. Which pattern would you have knitted first for one of your boys when they were little?
Well, so one of them, and I tell some stories in the book to go with them, but one of them actually is based on one that I did knit for my middle son, Jonah. And it's the Babbling Brook. It's this one, Babbling Brook.
Okay.
With the cables.
Is that Brookings?
So what's funny is Brookings was based on the child sweater I had created for my son when he was young. And I was like, I still love this sweater. This is a grown-up style sweater. So I designed Brookings for adults. And then it came full circle because then I was like, I should go back to the child's version and then bring that back because I never wrote a pattern for it when I made it for him. I just knit it.
Right.
So that one really is one that I knit for my kids. But I'm telling you, I would knit Beekeeper, Soundbite, Playdate. Like the Petra became Pebble and Stone, and it's got like kind of a sporty little look to it.
Yeah,
a little cardigan version.
Petra's I would do all this. On my list for a long time. I even have the yarn. I remember when we some friends and I went to the Not Another Fiber Festival, the one that was at Silver Springs. And I actually brought yarn with me to cast on Petra. I think you'd recently released it. I didn't get it done because I don't knit in public well. I have a very distracted brain. It's really hard for me to focus on knitting. In fact, I was trying to knit like a little cowl, and my friend Reenie had to keep fixing it because I can't knit in public. Anyway, I have not gotten Petra done, but I did knit Brookings. I wish I had it here. I actually used a speckled yarn, but it was a really muted speckled yarn. So it worked.
I think it could work. Yeah. I see a couple of questions that I just thought I would answer really quick. Vicki had asked if I refer to the adult sweaters and the patterns, and I do. At the very beginning of every single sweater pattern, it will tell you like this. It'll look like this. There's like, where is it? For the grown-up version, and then it gives you the link on my website where they can see it. So yes, there's that. And someone asked about what size range. So they're from newborn to size 8 to 10 years. So those are the sizes.
But the hats fit everyone. The hats go from
Yes.
teeny tiny newborn.
Preemie even.
Like a little baby. Yeah, preemie. This is the second size. So it gets even tinier than this little guy. And then all the way up to adults.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the hats are, I mean, I don't have babies to knit for, which doesn't mean I'm not going to knit baby sweaters because they're so stinking cute. But I'm really excited about the hats because I have a tradition of giving hats to family members. It's pretty much the only gift knitting that I will do. I'm a very selfish knitter.
Same.
Are you too?
Yeah.
Time is really limited and there are so many things that I want, but I will knit hats for people on occasion. So I'm very excited about all the hat patterns, even though I have no babies around me.
Like,
Let's
look
see.
how
Oh
cute.
my
This is the tugboat, which I couldn't call it boathouse because I actually had already designed a boathouse hat in a lighter weight yarn. So this is a slight variation and heavier weight yarn. And so it's a little different. But I mean, you can do so much fun if they've got So Happy Jane, like a little bit of leftover of little colors from different sweater projects.
They will, right? But
they will.
How cute this little speckle.
Oh, it'd be so cute with a speckle.
I don't know. I'm having a really hard time with where this camera is. Sorry,
I know, same.
Because I'm like really struggling. Anyway, this really soft speckled mint that's going to be on the website. I think it would be so cute with a cream for the tugboat or a bitty beekeeper even.
Oh, that would be so cute for the bitty bee. And, you know, I think it's important to point out all of them are gender neutral designs. I mean, it does depend on the parents, whether they agree, but I designed them all to be worn by, you know, any kid. They're not specifically, you know, masculine or feminine. And also Laura is asking about the yarn weight. They are across the spectrum. There's some fingering weight up to chunky. I would say DK and worsted are probably the most common, but there's a little bit of everything. So and a lot of them can be done with 1 or 2 skeins. So, I mean, Heather, when you put all that yarn up, they can just go like grab a bunch of 1 to 2 skeins of all those colors they love and then go home and knit all of them.
This was not even 2 skeins for this little set. I used, and so that's why I chose to knit. I had my friend Holly knit the ballerina pink one because when I first saw the pattern, I thought, oh, it's for girls. It didn't even occur to me boys can totally wear that, but that's because I'm a girl mom and you're a boy mom. So my brain goes girl clothes automatically, but I decided to knit one in a tweed because I wanted to show how cute it would be for a little boy in like a navy blue tweed.
So cute. How
cute would that be?
Are you knitting with the same tweed? I can't show what I'm making, but
I cannot. Yes.
I'm not going to show. In your tweed. I've got a lot of So Happy Jane on my needles right now.
We have some big stuff coming up this year.
We do. We've been busy. Like, you know, conniving and planning and plotting behind the scenes.
And I may have been involved in some of the scheming that Marie was trying very hard not. I hope I didn't push too hard.
No. So good. It's so good.
It's fun. We have fun things coming up. So I know we all know that we all love knitting, but I also have loved watching you love to cook too, and spend time in the kitchen. So when you're not knitting, what's your favorite thing to do? What do you love to do?
Cook and garden are my other 2 things. I love having my hands in the dirt. I love seeing seeds grow and turn into plants. I like, you know, tomatoes showing up on the vine. That's like the most exciting thing in the world. But I do love to cook. And, you know, I like to joke that, you know, my alternate self is like, has a YouTube cooking show. Like that's what I do in my alternate life, except for then I would turn it into work, you know, but I still do absolutely love to knit because the funny thing about my work is I don't really get to knit hardly ever. I mean, I'm mostly on the computer in meetings. It's very little of my work is actually knitting, even though no one would believe that. So when I do get to knit, it's such a treat. I still love to knit, but sometimes when I'm just like, I just need to be in my space, in my head, I'll go in the kitchen and I just kind of lose myself in the chopping and the simmering and the cooking. And I love to cook. And then when the weather's good, it's same thing in the garden. I love to write. I love to read. I'm a very, I want to say kind of nerdy. Like I don't like to exercise.
I've always
I'm
said about
trying.
myself that I'm like a little old lady, and from the age of 12, I've
Same.
wanted to do like the old lady things.
Same.
So I am super excited that I'm now fully middle-aged and I can just embrace that, right?
Yeah. I go to bed early. I wake up really early. I'm just so, I've been an old lady since I was like 5.
Yeah.
And
We're both we're both
we
old
are.
children. We discussed that last week. So I think that, part of that fits those two things are sort of interlinked, don't you?
I think so. I think so. I mean, that's just, cup of tea, rocking chair, knitting.
Do you have a favorite
music
author that you like to read?
So, it's funny. I mostly read the kind of books that nobody wants to hear about, like marketing and business and mindset. But I did so I have a couple of favorite books. I wouldn't say necessarily a favorite author because I don't have the attention span to like read a series or anything like that. But every once in a while, I'll sort of give myself the treat of some fiction. Not very often, but the three books that I loved in the last like 10 years. This is probably the only 3 fiction books I've read in 10 years either. So, What Alice Forgot by Leanne Moriarty, Euphoria by Lily King,
Yep.
and State of Wonder by Ann Patchett. And State of Wonder and Euphoria are very similar kinds of books because I think there was a part of me that wanted to be a scientist in the Amazon. Did you ever see that movie? Oh my gosh. It had Sean Connery, Dr.
I won't remember because I don't remember movies, but
same. Hold on, I'm going to see if I can remember. But anyway, there was this movie about these scientists that were, studying, and they were dealing with deforestation, and then they like discovered the answer was in the ants, and everything, got burned down. Lorraine Bracco, I think, was in it too. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a great. Like that is the other thing that I would have done is like go be like in the Peace Corps or be a scientist in the jungle. Like I love that. So if there's a book, a fiction story about that kind of thing, which 2 of the books on my list, Euphoria and State of Wonder, kind of go that direction, it lets you kind of live vicariously in that kind of extreme life that I don't know that I would have actually, been great at that, but
especially because Ann Patchett is one of my all-time favorites. She wrote State of Wonder, is one of my all-time favorite authors. I'm pretty sure I've read everything, including all essays that she's ever written. I adore her. And I heard the most interesting story about that book the other day when I was listening to, have you listened to the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert?
Yes, exactly. I know that story. Isn't that crazy?
She was like, I was going to write that book, but I didn't do it fast enough. So Anne wrote it and it got out into the world anyway.
Yeah, it's true.
That's so fascinating when thinking about creative work because, all the time we're inundated with everyone else's ideas because of social media, right? So sometimes you just have to put blinders on and do the thing and stop thinking about what everyone else is doing. And like try to put out work that means something to you that hopefully isn't exactly the same as somebody else's, trying to find.
I agree though with what Elizabeth Gilbert said in Big Magic, where she was talking about how, these ideas are sort of in the ethers and something will come into your mind and that inspiration sort of sits with you for a while. And if you don't act on it, regardless of what you believe, it really feels true that somehow those ideas get plucked into someone else's mind. And the fact that in that story, when she was telling that story about Anne and Elizabeth at lunch, describing this book to each other, and then realizing they had both been kind of writing the same book, just like that happens. And it's not, they were good friends. They had never discussed it before. And the fact that they both had the same idea, it's so interesting. And I try and stay, like, I'm not on Instagram anymore. I don't follow any other people's work. I don't go on any website. Like, I have the least amount of knitting industry in my world that you would be shocked. Like, I don't follow or look at anything, because I want to just come up with whatever's in my own head and not have any accidental inspiration. I mean, I'm sure it still happens, but I'm
well, it does inspire you. Do you have a primary thing, or is it just your brain?
The weird stuff like architecture, bridges, trusses, like floor tile, train stations, like the weirdest, very like unromantic things. Going to the coast, being out by the sea always really inspires me. But I do have I love architecture. I just, I wish I could live 10 lives, because I want to be so many things. And, I'd love to be an architect. And just, I think that inspiration is in weird places,
Yeah, I think so too. I think we've talked about inspiration before, and I think it's really interesting how we collect ideas. And I remember one time in my life, this was back when I was teaching music, before I ever even dreamed about becoming a dyer. I remember having the idea that I just needed to I was trying to collect and save and write down and document everything that I came across that inspired me, so that I could remember it and save it and use it later. And I remember a point when I sort of hit this wall and was like, okay, you got to stop this and start living and just see what sticks. Just let all the things flow in and then see what sticks. And that has worked pretty well for me lately. Because
That's
there's
a good approach.
So much stimulation, and it sounds like you're like me. I love gardening. I don't think I have such a technical brain as you. I never wanted to be a scientist. But
I didn't become one.
Guess what? My work is really driven by science, which I never saw coming.
Absolutely.
I spent all day yesterday doing sciencey things, trying to figure out how to get this one colorway to work the way that I wanted to. And so it turns out I maybe should have paid a little more attention in science. I don't know, because it didn't ever occur to me like the elements in water can impact the way that dye strikes on yarn. So like if the city does a water flush, then all of a sudden my water
crazy.
And my recipes change too. It's so much fun.
So fun. So great. Thanks, City.
And Kim is right. Science is also really connected to music, but I tried super hard to stay away from anything technical with music too. Anyway, I have been a member of Knit Camp for the last has it been 2 years?
Almost 2 years.
Approaching 2 years.
We are.
I thought we probably were.
Yeah.
I was curious if you would share with us how you were inspired to start Knit Camp and what you kind of hoped that would become.
At the time I was thinking I wanted to build an island. I wanted to build an island for my community, a place where, people weren't just coming and going, but could really stay and, find their space there and feel at home. And each other, everyone's, like providing a lot of inspiration and a lot of learning and helping to inspire people with that knitting confidence. That's such a big part of the work that I do, is helping people feel confident in their creativity and be willing to stretch and try new things and just not be afraid to fail, because failure is how I've gotten where I am, like being able to frog a project and start over. And, we learn so much when we make mistakes. And so I really was like, I want to build an island. a virtual island for my people. And everyone's my people, pretty much. They know a lot of our net campers are here, and I'm so happy to see them. It is, like Kim said, it's just a supportive space. I wanted it to be a place where people could come and really feel free to like experiment with their skills and try new things, and then have a place where there are people to cheer for you. And,
Right.
we have so few things as adults where we get, kudos or high fives or gold stars. And Knit Camp is a place for high fives all around. And over the 2 years so far, it's continued to evolve. We've had some growing pains as I've learned, basically we keep outgrowing the things that I create. And, so we put all this time and energy and resources into building a new thing. And then we outgrow that new thing more quickly than I expected. So the next step, which is basically unlimited resources for us, is the Knit Camp app, which is coming out. We're pretty close to that being released. It's all about the Apple App Store. They are very fussy.
Okay.
But
that's the linchpin, huh?
That's the linchpin. And it's really just a time thing for them. It just takes them a while to, to get through all that approval process. But really, regardless of where Knit Camp exists, whether it's, my website or, some stuff we do on Facebook or in the app, it's really kind of that community in your pocket that you're always part of. And I think we've all experienced so much isolation over the last year. And for many people, isolation started before COVID did, because of just health reasons. They couldn't travel and go to all the knitting things. And so Knit Camp makes it so that their community is always with them. And so that's really, what I don't think I thought it would become an app. Like that is the surprise of the year, is like, oh, this is what we're ready for.
Oh.
We're going to be an app now. And, but otherwise it's so much fun. I mean, you're in there. I love finding new challenges for the campers and finding new ways for us to engage and getting to know each other in the other things that interest us, our books, our gardening, trying all these other things. So,
yeah. So for those, I see a lot of Knit Campers, tons and tons of comments happening over here. We love Knit Camp. We love Knit Camp. It's the best. It's the best. It really is the best, most supportive, least divisive community that I have participated in. And I'm so thankful for that. So I love the concept of the creating an island, a safe space that is accessible no matter where you are. And now it's even going to be more accessible. It's going to be in your pocket because you always have your phone, right?
Yeah.
So people can connect and learn. But I've learned a lot of new things, and I'm not a new knitter or even a new sweater knitter. But I've learned so much about things that I never even expected to learn about. So
I hear that.
Favorite things.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. And I mean, that's my goal, because sometimes people ask, what level is it for? And it really just any level. It just depends. You take from it what's right for you in that moment, because there's so many different things that we can learn through any given project. But the fact that it's a positive, non-divisive space is something I have intentionally, that doesn't happen accidentally. That is very intentional, and it takes a lot of work. And part of it is just, I think, the supportive people who care about others and who want to show up and create that safe, diverse community. Those people are attracted to Knit Camp. So I think that's what makes it work. Like, the best people are there. I just can't tell you. The best people.
And so many of you are there.
I know. And they're here. So I'm like, Knit Campers, we love you.
They're loyal too. And that's really, really awesome. I mean, it's really it has been quite, I was just tooting your horn over on a completely different zip code, talking to other maker women. It's not even women. It's just, it's an industry alliance group. And they were talking about how do you create community in this time when it's so difficult. And I was like, I know somebody who knows how to do it. And I've been observing how you've been doing it. First of all, your stamina is stamina.
A lot of coffee.
Work way more than I want to ever work. I like relaxing, and I know you don't so much, but that's okay.
I don't know how.
someday maybe you will, and maybe you never will. But regardless, I know the number of millions of hours you've invested to not only create Knit Camp, but just to write patterns that are accessible, that work, that have a lot. Even your books have a ton of education in them, like your sweater in, is it 2 weeks? Am I going to get that right? Sweaters in
Seamless knit sweaters in 2 weeks.
Sweaters in 2 weeks, and there's so much education in that book. It's a huge, invaluable resource. And
I feel like that's super important, because otherwise I'm just like, what I grew up with were patterns that were like an entire adult twin set with like an under top and a cardigan and a skirt. And it was like 3 paragraphs. That's all they give you.
And you're like, huh?
Yeah. So I've really been super intentional about helping to make sure that if I'm going to write, I almost said write a recipe. If I'm going to write a pattern,
it is a recipe.
It is a recipe. And a technical writing is my background. So I don't think of myself as super creative. I'm very technical, and that is probably what comes through in the patterns, is that the technique and providing you everything that I can to help you be successful. That's super important to me.
Good. Well, we can tell when we knit your patterns. I remember, so this was, the light's not great in here. I do even have a special ring light, but this sweater is dark, so you can't really see the shaping, but I know how much time you invest in every little tiny detail and making sure that patterns are going to work when you knit them to the very best that you possibly can. The math is solid. The techniques are solid. Rini said she has 2 sweater books, one that is signed and one that she's spiral bound, so she can open it and use it as a reference book, because it is a reference book. So thank you for always teaching. I think that's one of the best things I've learned from you, is to just be educating and giving people as much information as possible to help them be successful with whatever it is that they're doing. Somebody asked how we met. Who said that? How did you two? Vicky said, how did you two meet? Do you remember?
I think we met through Heidi.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, well, she was who we had in common, but I think it was probably at the Not Another Fiber Festival that Sarah Keller had in Hood River. It was a few years back.
It has been a few years. I had my 4th birthday, so it hasn't been more than that.
Okay. So maybe 3 years? I don't know. I think you were still kind of
I was
new.
still pretty new. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And look at you now.
I actually think it was right after this cardigan came out that we met, because I remember what I was doing. I was sitting on the floor at the condo right before the festival opened, madly twisting and tagging yarn, because I had no clue how to get ready for a show. And I was like, tomorrow morning is the show. You better get everything labeled.
Now you know.
Yeah, I'll be more prepared. If we ever get to do shows again, I'll be more prepared next time.
I know, right? Yeah, hopefully. There might be one in our future next year.
I did sign up for Stitches 2022.
Me too.
Yeah, so when I saw the email come out, I was like, do I dare? Is this going to tempt fate? Like, what will happen if I do this and pay that fee? Does that, am I going to jinx it? Or
I'm worried about that as well, because I have sworn off every bit of travel since March 9th of last year. So I'm very nervous to say yes to that. But I was like, I guess, I mean, we got to have hope that someday things are going to change. And what's funny is I met Kim and Margot at Stitches. I don't know if Margot's on here, but Kim is. Stitches West. When my first book came out, I mean, they had been in my space, but I remember them coming to the book signing. So time is flying. It feels like 100 years ago, and also just yesterday. So I don't know.
I was going to say, it's so much has happened for both of us in our businesses in the last few years. It's been quite a lot of growing.
Oh, Kim, we met at a class at Monarch.
Monarch.
Oh, I forgot that. I'm sorry. I totally remember you being at Stitches West, but did we meet before that? Kim knows I love her, and I didn't forget on purpose.
I just popped your order in the mail, Kim. Are you home yet, Kim? Mary wants you to do a cruise since the one that you had scheduled got canceled.
I've got to say, so they did ask me to do a cruise this fall, and it was a month long, and I could not commit to a month. I mean, I wanted to go to where it is so much. I was like, this is the hardest thing to say no to, but I cannot do a month-long cruise. I just can't. So I don't have anything on the books right now, but I have a good relationship with Craft Cruises, and it was hard to say no because oh my gosh, the cruise sounded like such a dream, but my business is so busy that even if I can kind of work, I can't be gone for a month. I just can't do it right now.
You have so many things going on, even with this new, so you have Knit Camp. Mm-hmm. You have Olive Knits is like the mother tree, right?
It is. Mm-hmm.
She's the mother tree. And it started out as patterns and then evolved into Knit Camp, which is a subscription community. Mm-hmm. That's what I meant to say that when we started talking about Knit Camp. For those of you who might be interested in Knit Camp, if you're not currently a member, if you go to oliveknits.com, there's a little Knit Camp button. You can sign up to get on a waiting list. Is that right, Marie?
I'm not sure if that button gets you the wait list or not. I will check. We need to get the wait list. We do have a wait list. Let me figure out where it is. I'll give you the link. But once the app,
somebody could post a little link in there if there's an appropriate place for people to go to get more information about that.
Yeah,
because it will be on my website after for quite a while.
Yeah, we'll get you the link. Once the app is in the App Store, then anybody can sign up. Like it'll be really easy to access.
Okay. So then it won't be. You won't have to wait. At this point, you have 2 enrollment periods, mm-hmm. but pretty soon it's going to be whoever wants to.
Yeah, we're still working out the subscription model for the app. For everyone who's already in Knit Camp, though, you get to keep what the system you came in on. You'll get to keep that, and then when new people come through the app, it's just set up a little differently. So, but there's also, if people don't use their phones, you can also do it on the website. So there's a website and an iPhone app and an Android app. So it's all the things.
So you have Olive Knits pattern designs. You have Knit Camp, which you get some designs as a member of Knit Camp, which is pretty great. And you just started a publishing company to publish Knit a Little, right?
I did. Well, I wanted to start a publishing company just because I feel like there is room in the world of publishing for some fresh new ideas. I also really believe in authors having more, a little bit more creative control with their work, and having done a couple of books with a different publisher, I learned so much. And like I said, I have a background in writing, and so it's not a weird. It might seem weird to other people, but it wasn't strange for me. And I love to have the next challenge. Like I need a new mountain to climb. And as soon as I climb that one, I'm like, okay, what's the next mountain? Next, let's fill my backpack and go find a taller mountain. Yeah. And so really the reason that Knit a Little came out through the new publishing company, which is called Library House Press, is that I felt like somebody's going to have to be the guinea pig for the first book. I'll make myself the guinea pig so that no one else is disappointed by like any kind of learning curves that we have. And we've had some for sure. But it was a great experience. I've been speaking with other authors, and, we'll be publishing books in a variety of topics, not just about knitting. We'll be doing gardening, and the kind of concept is really books that like inspire you, books that not fiction at this point, but I'm not saying never, because I do really want to In my next life, I'm going to write mystery novels, so we'll get there. But
This could happen now. I mean, what, we got 40 years
yeah.
left. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just can't. I can't sit still. I mean, I've said this before, and this is the most ridiculous description of myself. But I really am a fart in a skillet. Like I just am all over the place. I've got to do a lot of things to stay like inspired. And and things get boring after a while. So it's like I've got to level up. And
Okay, what's next? Yeah.
yeah, like what's the next fun adventure? And also some of it is systematizing, and I create a new thing and then I have to work on it until it's
Right.
humming along smoothly. So those things are just the logistics. That's like what it's been with Knit Camp, is like figuring out how to get over some of the speed bumps of just navigating technology and all of that. But yeah, it's fun to have I like having a challenge. And so I was like, I'm ready for the next challenge. And sometimes I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why do I do this? Kim says, and Marie, would you build a car if you needed to relearn how to what? And also somebody asked about the Good Enough Creative podcast. I want you to know that I love podcasting. And it was so hard for me to not be able to do it for the last while, because I've had a ton I want to say, but okay, just this is not pretty, but podcasting stuff is set up. And of course, now I've messed up my whole screen here. Podcasting stuff is set up, and getting the camera right. So it will be back, but I don't think I'm going to build a car. But if I did have to learn how to drive, maybe I would build a car.
Or
I'm not opposed to it. Or
a house. Buy a house you designed, because it would work also.
I'm not going to lie. Like
you just start making stuff up. When you need something new, you just make up a whole new thing.
Oh yeah. I do. I know.
There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. Look at all you've innovated. Pretty amazing, actually.
And it's fun. I just, I like the challenge of trying something that I don't know how to do yet.
Yeah.
Or figuring out the learning curve. I mean, I hate it in the moment. I'm like, oh, curses. But then once I master it, I'm like, oh, that was fun. It's like a little adrenaline rush, and I'm like, okay, some people like to ride their Peloton. I have one and I don't get on it, but my like personal like endorphins come from just like conquering a new thing. My sister's telling everyone I've always wanted gray hair. That is true. I don't now. I don't want it now, but I did when I was a kid. I was like,
getting gray hair. We have Rhonda on here, who's a hairstylist, and I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, she was like, Heather, don't cut your bangs. Rhonda, I just want you to know I've been cutting my bangs for a year now. I'm getting pretty good at it. Anyway, see, you can learn new things. If that's what you want to do, you just try it until it works. And when you're not going anywhere, you can cut your bangs a lot until you get it right, and no one will see.
Heather, I cut my bangs when I was in Australia, and I regretted my life choices, because what I didn't realize, I used to be able to pull off bangs, but my hair isn't as thick as it used to be. So I like had this day, because I was by myself down there for 3 months. So I was like, I think it's time for a little fringe. So I cut my bangs, and it was like, you could see right. I mean, it was like there was no bangs there hardly. It was horrible. It was a terrible decision. And they're finally like, they've grown back.
Yeah.
But that was a bad life choice.
I cut my daughter's bangs at the beginning of the pandemic, and I should know better, because they went really, really short. And she was so mad at me. They've only grown back long enough that she can, put them back anyway. Sometimes you try new things and it doesn't work. Sometimes you try new things and it works amazingly. Like you decide you're going to build a knitting island, and people show up and everybody loves being there. And sometimes you decide you want to be an author, so you just write a book and everybody loves it.
And you know what? I think probably like my lesson in life, I'm a perfectionist and I don't like to fail, but also if I waited until things were perfect, until I knew I wouldn't fail, I wouldn't have done anything. So, I think the lesson in all of this is that, if you are inspired to do something, get out there and do it. You're going to make mistakes. Not everybody's going to love it. That's normal. And, you know, I've had to get a thicker skin for sure, because I used to be really sensitive and I took everything personally. I'm not proud of that, but I really did. Like I mean, people send the meanest things in emails you would never believe. You know,
Oh,
you would believe.
I do believe it.
It was probably the biggest shock, is thinking, I came into this industry thinking like knitters are the best people in the world. And then you find out mostly they are, but
Yeah,
there's like 11 of them that aren't. And
that
then
really suck.
and they send really mean
Yeah.
messages. And those people, it really got to me, you know, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm a failure. This one person's not happy. And it's taken time for me to learn, like, I cannot be responsible for everyone's happiness and experience, but I can do my very best. And sometimes I won't get it right. And I think that that's the lesson through knitting too, is we're not always going to get it perfect, but if we keep trying, we're going to get better. And honestly, I don't think you get to that finish line with a project without powering through those hard parts and powering through a few mistakes.
And figuring out how to rebound when it happens, which is a life lesson.
You don't
And
die.
I mean, I started out as a music teacher. I was never going to be a yarn dyer. And I remember when I first started dyeing yarn, how much I loved it immediately. Like, oh, I want to do this so much. And I was teaching full time. And like every little minute I could get, I just was like finding a way to carve out space to do it. And I remember the first few people I told were kind of like, well, you know, there's a lot of dyers out there. Hope you don't have big plans for this, because it's a saturated market. And you hear that over and over and over again. It's a saturated market. There's a million knitting patterns. There are 3,000 indie dyers. So you just have to do what your heart tells you.
I had that same discouragement. The very space that I was in that kind of launched this this idea to design patterns for other people, because I was just making my own patterns for like sweaters for myself. And then people were asking, Dee Gardner comes to mind, and she was, I don't know if she's watching, I haven't seen her on here yet, but she was like, do you write up a pattern? I'll test knit it. And you know, she just kept kind of spurring me on. And then that became a group of people doing that. And I had someone that I won't say who, that said, you know, there's no money in this. There's already thousands of people designing patterns, and, you know, don't get your hopes up, basically. And you know what? There's a lot to be said for working really hard and being very genuine. And that's what I've done. I was like, I don't know where it's going to go. I didn't have any expectation. I thought it was just going to be this little thing I did and made patterns. I didn't have any I'm a big dreamer, but I didn't even dream big with this yet. I was just like, I'm just going to make some patterns. It'll be fun. And it's amazing. You know, I don't care how many designers are out there, or dyers, or writers, or whatever thing that someone's interested in. It doesn't matter how many people are doing it, because there's always room for a new idea, you know, and a fresh perspective, and, you know, someone else's vision for that little world. And so I'm a firm believer in a rising tide lifts all boats. I think there's more than enough room for all the creative people. And so I love to support other creatives, and I love to see their work flourish. I think it's really important.
Yeah, and you do a great job of that. Actually, that's something you're really good at. I totally agree with you. I think I was just completely happy teaching music, and I fully planned on just doing that. And I would have probably not ever quit if the pandemic hadn't happened. I would still probably be trying to dye yarn and teach music. And I don't know how I survived the last 2 years, but I'm really thankful that this year I'm only dyeing yarn.
I bet.
So anyway, I think it's really interesting that how similar our paths are in that way. Like, let's just try it and see what happens.
Well, I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen anyway?
Let's see. It was Jeanette who said, Marie always reminds us it's just knitting.
It is. It's not
knitting.
like no one's going to die unless you stab them.
Yeah, the yarn
with your needle.
Yarn will still be yarn when the sweater is no longer a sweater if you have to take it back out. So
that's what I love about knitting, because if you've ever been a seamstress, which I have in various times in life, as soon as you make a mistake and you've cut everything, then you're like, well, I guess this fabric can be bean bags now. Like you can't, it's not as easy with yarn. Like the failure is pretty minimal. Like you can start over almost always.
Try again. Just try again.
Pull Absolutely. It out. Try again.
Well, we are super excited about the new book. I can't wait till I get some copies.
They're coming your way soon. I know we're a little delayed. Part of that guinea pig learning curve that things I didn't know was that a bindery, the very last step in the process when everything else is beautiful and perfect and done, that the bindery can have a dirty roller that messes up all the book copies. So I'm glad that was on me and not another author, so that I could learn what potentially can go wrong. But the books will be going out very shortly, and oh my gosh, I'm really proud of it. And I can't wait for y'all to see it.
Yeah. So I'll be sure and share on my website what projects I think will work the best for the yarn that I have. I don't have a ton of inventory because, as Marie has hinted, there's a lot of cool stuff coming up. I've been really busy doing things I can't even tell you about yet. She did give away one little secret, but we're gonna.
They're coming out late. They have to go back and rewatch to see the secret. I'm not saying it again.
Right, we're not saying it again. Watch from the beginning.
It's a long video, but you're gonna have to see the whole thing to find the secret.
There's more secrets coming, and so there will be yarn on the website at 5:30 on Friday, 5 o'clock Mountain Time. And I will do my best. I'm happy to help you plan projects. Marie's going to send me a project planner so that I can tell you which little knits will work the very best. And then more fun things coming soon. So we can't wait to knit all the little things. Thank you so much for being here and letting me ask all the questions, Marie. Thanks
for inviting me. So fun.
It's been great, and I've learned so much from you over the years. Thanks for letting me grow with you.
Oh, I love having you in my community, and I love working with your yarn. I'm so excited to get our secrets out there soon.
Yeah, we'll tell you all the secrets very soon. Also, be sure, if you go to my website, I'll type it in right here really quick because I don't have an Erica. If you go to my website, there will be a little pop-up window that can take you straight to my newsletter. Signing up for my newsletter is the very best way for you to find out what's going on with my business. It's the place where I tell all the inside stories and talk about things that I love besides just yarn too. So sign up for the newsletter. Marie also has a newsletter. There is a link up above. If you go to olivelknits.com, you'll be able to find a spot for that newsletter also right there.
It's same thing. It's where the secrets are spilled. It's where you'll hear things first.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning in today, everybody. And thank you so much for being here, Marie. We'll talk to you all soon.
Again. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes. We'll see everybody later. Have a great weekend.
Bye, everybody.